Around half of our business at the moment being land and sea projects, whether it's in Africa, whether it's in Australia, whether it's in Singapore or here in the US. There's huge demands for our ships. We're actually nearly fully booked for the next 2 years, and we're actually taking on more tonnage and more ships to support the demand.
Thanks for checking out Project Cargo Professionals. We talk a lot about digitalization and AI on this show, which is why I want to tell you about our sponsor, Logiswift. Logiswift makes your operations faster and simpler, managing the entire cargo lifecycle in one smart platform. With real end-to-end visibility, you can adapt quickly when things change. Built for Project Cargo, it's now even more powerful with its new AI feature. Check out logiswift.com to take your supply chain to the next level. Or message me directly and I'll connect you with Ziad, Khan and the team. Now to the show.
Eddie, good to see you. Good to see you too, Luke. Thanks for the invite.
No, not at all. I know you've been around the industry a little while now and you've recently made a move from the UK to the US. For people who aren't familiar, what's it like to live and work in Houston in terms of our business projects?
Well, the people that don't know too much about Houston, I mean, Houston and Texas really built from oil and gas. A lot of oil fields around Houston. I think obviously as a petrochemical and energy hub, Houston built up around that, and it's widely regarded as the energy capital of the world. So to live and work here in general in the energy industry, whether it's renewables or oil and gas, petrochemical, is great because you've got a huge amount of clients, huge amount of decision makers, huge amount of companies, quite a lot of head offices as well, scattered around the city. So there's plenty to do, and there's lots of projects actually going on as well, and lots of project decisions and some head office decisions, and technical work is done. The engineering work is done as well. But also, I guess in Houston, it's not just for us in logistics, in maybe the downstream world that we're used to building plants. There's a lot of obviously production, supply, and everything else all happens here. So as a hub and as a city, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of the job market is, I think, fairly buoyant at the moment. A lot of things happening, both in conventional oil and gas, petrochemical, also power, energy transfer that we're all talking about at the moment, and some of the other projects that are coming on. So there's a lot going on. To live here, I guess Houston is so big. How do I compare it? I mean, I never lived in London in the UK. I'm from a small town in Burton, so
it's quite different.
To compare what is Houston, 8 or 10 million people spread over a huge amount of surface area. I mean, where I lived to where I went to university felt like a drive back in the day when I first went to university. I think that's the same distance now as the Beltway from east to west of Houston.
Yeah,
and it felt like a drive. So just to drive around is an experience. But there's loads of different areas. Like you said, you can go to the beach one day, you can be in the mountains or at the lake another day. Lots of different areas to live depending on what you like. From the south to the east to the west and the north. It's very multicultural, very diverse, and very friendly. People are just really, really friendly.
And what's the expat community like here?
I think I live up in the woodlands, near the woodlands. Quite diverse again, across a range of people, nationalities and backgrounds. But it's quite welcoming and quite friendly. I'd say not as in your face as like the Middle East or Dubai or Abu Dhabi where I've come from before.
Yeah.
But I think it's an attractive place to be. It's an attractive place to come and work. It's an attractive place for companies and people to live. So you're seeing people emigrate, I guess, intra-United States to come and live and work here and in other of the major cities in Texas, but also from abroad as well.
Now you're with Roll Group, interesting company because you're both sea and land. Tell us about Roll and the different services that you offer.
Roll Group, really specialist in land, marine and sea turnkey logistics solutions. And I think that's where we would pitch ourselves
And you're asset owners.
We're asset owners as well. So we own a fleet of vessels and a fleet of land equipment, and then we're growing a fleet of barges now as well. So we can perform projects from vendor or factory all the way through to the project site internationally using our own assets. We can also do it with other assets as well, but I guess we're unique in that sense where we can actually handle a customer's cargo from cradle to grave as soon as it releases from the vendor. So that's unique. We have a fleet of vessels. The vessels do multiple ways of working with those vessels. So we have a fleet of heavy lift vessels, and we also have deck carriers as well that specialize in modular transportation. We're growing that fleet. Then to link that in, the international sort of shipping arm of what we do links into where we're based strategically around the world. So we're based in North America. Obviously, our hub here is in Houston. We're based in Middle East, where our center is Abu Dhabi and Dubai. But we're also expanding into other areas and working in other areas around the Gulf, including Saudi. Qatar is going very well at the moment, and Oman and other areas there. We're also in APAC, so Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, that we do a lot of work in. Also out of China and into Australia more recently, and then Africa. So Africa is a growing hub for us. So where we can operate a standalone, let's say, logistics and heavy lift operation, and then complement and supplement that with our ocean going vessels, that's sort of what we try to do. And we see around half of our business at the moment being land and sea projects, whether it's in Africa, whether it's in Australia, whether it's in Singapore or here in the US. And I think we're doing quite well at that at the moment with bringing customers' cargo from anywhere in the world that it may originate from. And actually, if you took Roll Group a few years ago, it would probably stop there when it arrived at the port. But now we're able to link in the whole solution and the whole turnkey package and take that cargo all the way up to the site. In some cases, up to the site and then onto the foundation. In some cases, just up to the site. So in the US, what that means is a lot of times intercoastal marine and barging, and then the roll-on, roll-off operations to take it through into the site as well. And then we can use a fleet of land-based equipment that we have around the world, which includes hydraulic, self-propelled modular trailers, hydraulic trailers that are suitable for over the road and also into the site, cranes, range of hydraulic, telescopic, and crawler cranes as well, up to 1,500 tons.
You have your own cranes?
We have our own cranes as well. We own and operate our own cranes. I guess the US is the center for sort of our lifting operations, but in terms of our crawler cranes. But around the world, we are developing some different lifting solutions. So we've got a couple of mega gantry cranes that we've designed and built and brought to the market that give us up to 4,000 tons lifting capacity, £9 million in US money. We can lift up to 100 meters. So there's some really good stuff happening in the group, and we're trying to grow both that turnkey offering where we can offer this solution, but obviously not all projects and not all customers need or want that solution. Right. So we can also offer the packages and the equipment, or just the engineering in some cases as it's needed. So we can tailor solutions to what the customer and what the project demands, I think.
And I was interested to see that you began life as a project engineer. How did you make the move into logistics?
I got a call from Richard Peckover. That was pretty much the end of that. After university, my hometown being Burton, it's an engineering town and an engineering region with Rolls-Royce, JCB, Toyota, and Burton being a brewing centre. A lot of engineering pedigree around structural engineering, but also brewing engineering. So I started there. in the EPC world. And then I got an opportunity to leave my hometown, so I wasn't going to refuse. And I got an opportunity to go to Abu Dhabi, where my brother was living in Dubai at the time as well. So I think I just got back from a holiday where I'd been to see my brother at the time with his wife, and spend a week with them. And it was very coincidental that an opportunity would pass me by for Abu Dhabi, that I was just in that region. So I thought to myself, well, I'll go and have a conversation and see what that looks like. And I think
12 years there.
And I spent 12 years there. Yeah, the rest was sort of history. You know, the Channel 5 Mega Movers at the time, I think there was a construction show on Channel 5 about Mega Movers. Yeah, and I thought, that sounds like alien. That sounds like something interesting. And the appeal to me at the time was to not, I guess, I like to do lots of things at the same time and be involved in quite a few different projects or situations at various stages. So to be involved in something like ALE was an opportunity to be involved in multiple projects at the same time. What I was doing on a construction project for who I used to work for in the UK, that really kept me there for a longer period of time on that one project. So to get a bit more diversity and to get a bit more experience was an exposure was part of the appeal. But yeah, I was shipped off to Abu Dhabi at the end of 2007.
And I read an interview somewhere where you said you were working at your limits over there. What did you mean by that?
Between 2008 and 2013, I would say, there were so many large projects that, let's say, we got involved in, that we won and we were awarded and that we delivered. The Middle East was probably the largest entity outside of the UK and ALE at the time. And the projects that were being taken on were probably close to the limit, or sometimes a little bit beyond the limit of the capability of the people, but also the equipment and also the infrastructure around the organization to deliver projects like that. So there was a huge learning curve on a lot of the projects, and you know, Qatar being one of them. Go and live in the desert for 18 months and do this project for me whilst learning the industry, and it was
including yourself in that learning curve.
Including myself, yeah. completely just utilizing your basic skill set of transparency, integrity, and just trying to get the job done and deliver what you promise was really what we had to live by, because we often didn't have quite the right equipment, or maybe enough of the right equipment, and we always were stretched a little bit thin. So there was always a juggling and a balancing act with what the priority was, and what you were going to tell the client the priority was as well, and how you're going to manage that. And then how you're going to deliver the project. And the greatest thing about that project in Qatar for me was I had the exposure and the autonomy to manage. You know, there was very little micromanagement, and you were given the tools, and you were given the resources, you were given the support that you needed, and then you were able to go in front of the customer and then tell them what you were going to do. The great thing about that project, I think we received, it was Pearl GTL at 2008, 2010, on and off. Like I said, I spent most of the time living in Ras Laffan, which was a really tremendous experience. I never got to see the swimming pool, by the way, that I was sold. And the camp had a swimming pool and a bar and everything else. We didn't get to see much of that. We were working a lot.
Sure, you saw the bar.
A couple of times, yeah, but that was only for it was only for essential meetings. The project itself was, I think, probably one of the largest construction projects in the world going on at that time, and we were there as one of the main, let's say, heavy lift logistics providers on the site. And the great thing for me was I was there as a project manager, and then had the ability to be able to go and speak to other customers, capture more work, and increase the scope. It was quite a success. But also the equipment that we were using was not necessarily the latest and greatest equipment. I think the Middle East at the time, even in history, has been a place that you put maybe the more aging equipment over to get that last use out of it. But that was great for me, as a heavy lift engineer and a project manager. I was able to learn what the equipment was actually capable of doing, because it's quite easy to use the best and latest equipment just because it's there.
Yeah.
But actually what tends to happen is we underutilize, or we don't have as good understanding of what some of the other equipment is actually capable of doing, and did some really magic things with that equipment on site, and stuff that I didn't think would be possible. But the great thing about ALE at the time, it had, and throughout my tenure there, throughout the whole 12 years, we had a core group of supervisors that were just gold, like gold dust. And they were so reliable and so excellent at what they did that really was the difference, I think. In the on-site execution of the work, we had really excellent supervision, and they really knew the equipment inside and out. And if you were willing to learn and stand by those people and actually learn how to build it, how it operates, what the steering limitations are, when it's going to bend in the middle, that was a valuable experience. And then getting back to the UAE after that project, sort of having a really good understanding of the equipment, having delivered the largest project, and that sort of set the tone, I guess, for me for the next 5 years, which is go and get involved in some of the larger, maybe more complex projects that we were undertaking as a result of that. And obviously it's a catalyst for further growth and further project development as well, and do the larger projects that we had in the region. And I was able to take that forwards and then deliver on some other really nice projects. So I came back to the UAE, I think in end of 2009, 2010, did a couple of really nice power and desalination projects. And then one of the real larger projects that we executed at the time, Ruwais was going crazy in Abu Dhabi. I think there was about 4 mega projects all happening at the same time. So we had a full-time staff down there and a team doing all the major projects. ALE's SK crane was down there as well. So there's a huge amount of activity going on, and ALE had won all the work. But we also had Habshan 5, which was slightly more challenging because the site was nowhere near any port.
Right.
So Ruwais as an industrial area was right next to the jetty, and that was more about volume and scale. The challenge of that in coordination and planning and engineering. Habshan 5 the challenge was logistics.
And then you had a break, didn't you, for a while? After COVID, did you leave the industry and then you went back into the industry, into role?
I left ALE when Mammoet took over.
Mm-hmm.
I decided that, I'd done my 12 or 13 years in the Middle East, and I thought it was a natural break, a natural end. So I took the opportunity to go back to the UK, settled with the doing some consultancy work, but also with back in Burton-on-Trent, working with the company that I did previously.
Okay.
Back in the sort of EPC and manufacturing world. But COVID hit, so really the opportunity to do what was planned to do didn't really happen. And obviously being in the UK during COVID, having just
wasn't much fun,
moved
was it?
there, it wasn't much fun. There wasn't a lot going on. We'd decided to move to a very remote location as well in the Midlands, where it wasn't really a city. There wasn't a lot going on as well. So it was quite isolating, and there wasn't that much to do. That's not to say that we didn't enjoy it, but we got the opportunity then to come back out to the US with Roll Group, which I think we clutched with 2 hands.
And I saw you're expanding in Louisiana. What's going on there?
Louisiana is really off the back of a couple of large projects that we're doing this year. They're both factory to foundation, sort of cradle to grave, turnkey projects, utilizing our ships, our barges, and our on-land transportation requirements and equipment, and we're also working on two levee crossings as well in the US. So that the major projects that we're executing, and off the back of that, we're also spreading our wings a little bit into the other states and the other adjacent states as well. So taking the opportunity to set up a project office and an operational yard and a secondary base in the US, in Louisiana, and then those projects acting as a support function and also a catalyst to be able to keep them going and to be able to expand a little bit into the day work and brownfield expansions and maintenance side as well, and some of the smaller projects as well that we probably would have missed had we not taken the step to expand. So it was a almost a sensible but inevitable approach when you get a good degree of continuity of work and projects to make the step, make the establishment and set it up. So we're now based there, which gives us the opportunity to optimize some of our operations, to spread some of our equipment out so we can service other projects, be cheaper in some cases or more competitive on some of our mobilizations, demobilizations. And also Louisiana, we see that as a real key area.
LNG is the place, isn't it?
I think LNG is the place, but also there's lots of other types of projects that are happening there. Not just LNG, but also some energy transfer projects as well, ammonia, methanol, blue and green hydrogen, as well as in Houston as well. So it supports that, and any project in Louisiana obviously has its logistical challenges, and also its onshore challenges as well, because most of the plants are situated off water or off the river, off the Mississippi River as well. So therein lies some of their own challenges as well to do that. So
it's not the easiest place to do business, is it?
It's not the easiest place to do business, but at the same time, it's fairly straightforward what's needed to be done, and that's why I think a lot of the plants are modular or significant breakbulk, but then working on more of a modular design, because geographically that helps and that facilitates the time to market, which I think is critical here. It seems to be a race for everything. Once the project gets that final investment decision on the rubber stamp, it's really go, and I think a lot of the time that's down to some of the the political cadence and that 4 years you've got to hit the market in time, but also that's relevant with LNG, but also with some of the other projects that we're seeing as well. So there's a lot of opportunities there, and a lot of projects that we see well up to 2030 that are really coming online.
And there's a lot of talk about permitting reform, which sounds like it should be a good thing, but you've expressed some concerns about that.
I think permitting reform, depending on what the project is. So I think it changes depending on the administration, but we've seen a lot of acceleration in some of the projects, for example LNG, and some question marks with other projects that maybe have different funding mechanisms or different ways of reaching FID and some of the criteria for those projects, either whether it's emissions, the permit differences between, let's say, 2 years ago and now, and the criteria for achieving that permit may be different. So there's a different priority and a different emphasis. So that's a challenge, because if it doesn't make sense, and if the project cannot be built in time, then sometimes the investment can be pulled into question. So it is often a race. But that therein lies the great thing about this region between the Gulf Coast, spread from Houston and into Louisiana as well. When a project happens, it's got to happen, and it's going to happen quickly, and it's going to happen at a fairly reasonable scale.
And what's the availability of barges like in the US at the moment? And are you planning to manufacture your own barges here? Do you operate your own barges in the US?
We operate our own barges under a under a model where we will hire or charter or whatever we need to do to support the market. But because of the Jones Act, then it's probably difficult for us with our ownership structure to build our own Jones Act compliant barges. But also, I think there's plenty of other opportunities for us around the world where we will build our own barges.
You're doing that already, aren't you, in Asia? Or?
Yes, in Asia, it's a great area to do that. We've already designed and built our first barge, Roll Barge 1, last year, and there's plans on the drawing board for possibly another between 2 and 6 further barges in the forthcoming 2 or 3 years. So again, depending on the project requirements. Here, I think the strain on the barges has relaxed a little bit. I don't know whether that's due to some of the demands on the offshore wind projects relaxing as well, but also I think people have recognised, and some of the barge owners have recognised, that we need to continue to supplement the assets in the region. So we see new assets coming online. We haven't had an issue to date, but it's very important to just plan what you're going to need and make sure you've got that asset secured, which we've taken steps to do to service 3 of our next projects that we have. So we have long-term hire agreements to support that.
And away from barges, what are your plans for new building vessels? Because I know there's huge demands for your ships at the moment.
There's huge demands for our ships. We're actually nearly fully booked for the next 2 years, and we're actually taking on more tonnage and more ships to support the demand. From a new build perspective, obviously right now it's quite expensive from a new build perspective, and also the uncertainty on the fuel and the requirements and the regulations, both out of the EU where we're based, but also internationally. I think there's some reluctance there in terms of new build, but we see opportunities to bring on new vessels under our commercial and operational management and build our fleet in that way. So we can almost double the size of our fleet without new builds, but we can still increase our capacity.
When are you looking to achieve that doubling?
Between 2028 and 2030. It's part of our 2030 strategy, but we are looking to bring that forwards because we do see the market needing it. We see some huge projects coming up in the future, both in the US and also in other regions, including APAC and the Middle East. I think up to 2032, we have good visibility, and the market is looking strong in terms of what we do, but especially in terms of shipping. So we see some positivity around that, and I think to go from 8 ships to 10 ships this year, actually 11 ships, because we do some other chartering as well to meet demand. But then I think we'll see that getting up to 15 ships within the next 2 to 3 years.
And in terms of your career so far, what would you say the highlight has been?
In terms of project, I was thinking about this. I've been asked that question several times, and I think I would go back to the UAE, and there was a couple of projects there that I was proud of. One was the Dolwyn 2 project in Dubai Dry Docks, because that was a real collaborative effort between 2 or 3 branches of ALE at the time. Again, designing and building a new system, bringing that to the market. My role within that was getting the permission to alter and upgrade some of the facilities to accept the system that we were using to deliver. So working in the UAE, it's quite difficult to do that, and working through the municipalities and the government entities and things like that to try and expedite. You're always up against the clock, but also to get it done and to get it well documented and to support the client with that and to make that project a success. And it was not a first, but it was at the scale and the size that it was certainly a world record. And that was a real achievement. And there was actually, we had a Strandjack go down just the night before the lift. And I promised the room of 40 customers that you have just before you're about to do a lift like that in the site porter cabin, that it would be, and our project management team promised that will be replaced and we'll be lifting at 8 o'clock the next morning. And we told them that very confidently. We had a wonderful crew, fantastic guys. We had a great solution as well. But the confidence that we portrayed was, you know, in the background, we were sweating a little bit. But we started the lift on time, and we did a tremendous job. You know, the pictures and everything painted 1,000 words. It was a wonderful project to be involved in, and something different to what I was used to. In the UAE, it was very much barging, very much logistics, very much volume of cargo that we're moving. And this was a single lift that took 2 years to design, a year to realize on site, and then it came right down to the wire at the end. It was very, very satisfying and doing something new that I wasn't quite used to. I think the other major achievement was having that it's been broken numerous times since by several other of our competitors, which is great, but reaching the world record for SPMT loadout, which was a job we did in Jebel Ali in 2014. So with SPMT, so that was really good. And I remember at the time, our engineering manager, because we'd weighed the unit, and we were going to load it out onto the barge to do an offshore installation, and he handed me the microphone and the radio and said, "You're leading this," which was not the discussion or the agreement before we started it, but it went really well. So that was quite an achievement to load out 15,000 tons at the time, and be in control and be the person that was doing it, which wasn't necessarily my role, was quite cool. So I still have that plaque on the wall.
But it hasn't all been plain sailing, because I read you wrote you've had quite a few setbacks. So I was interested, what were the difficult moments?
I think I could pick one. In this industry, if things go wrong, things can go really wrong.
Yeah.
And I've been lucky to never seriously hurt anybody being in this business, or never witnessed anybody to be seriously hurt. I've had experiences on site with people being hurt on adjacent operations or operations not to do with me, where people have been killed. And that's what keeps you awake at night. We had a situation where we were transporting a column. This was in the Middle East, and it fell off at a turn, and there were four people on the job. Luckily, no one was hurt and no one was injured. But that type of experience just sobers you. And we got a little bit of our engineering. We could have been better. Our planning and preparation could have been a little bit smarter. But I think the pressure of getting the job done, that vessel must leave this night. It must be on site on this day. And if you miss your date again, Eddie Talbot, ALE, that's it. You know, I was shaking going into the sites every Saturday morning for that job. And that pressure builds, and then you can miss things. And I think not just sitting back and really thinking about when we start to get the limit of what people can do, and then also to the limit of what the equipment can do, then you can have that perfect storm, and then things can go wrong.
And what are you most looking forward to this year at Breakbulk Americas?
I always look forward to any of the Breakbulks, and particularly the Americas this year, because we get to share some of our experiences and to work with some of the customers that come to ask questions on how things are going, what we're seeing and what we're learning, and to share some experiences on previous projects. So in the Middle East in the past, we were able to speak on some of the more challenging projects. I was able to speak on some of the more challenging projects in Kuwait, for example, at the time. And that enabled a lot of other conversations to take place with some customers that saw and heard that, to be able to take some lessons forward into their planning and their projects as well. Similarly, when going back to Breakbulk, when it was in Antwerp, we had some really nice conversations with some customers that we didn't know and some customers that we did. That one example was, I think, in London when we did a project for a company that we didn't know before, we had no experience with, but they came to Breakbulk to find a large crane at that point, but they didn't know anybody. They didn't know the industry. They didn't know how it looked, but they thought Breakbulk was the best place to find it. And that got us a very large job in London at the time, that was completely out of the blue, but a really, really nice, prestigious project. And that's what I look forward to. It's having those impromptu conversations and somebody that, like I said, I like the old connections and bringing old connections to new regions and new projects and working together. That's really, really rewarding. But I also like those new conversations of, I've got this problem, can you solve it? And then we can say, yes, we can. That will happen this year. I almost guarantee it. So I look forward to that.
If you were hosting a dinner during Breakbulk Americas this year, who would you invite?
Besides Donald Trump?
That'd be good if you came.
It would be great. It would be great. We could really understand. We could really understand how it's going and what we're going to do and where these projects are going to come from. So I think that would be wonderful. I think it would be great to have some of my older colleagues. That's what I love about Breakbulk is to see some of my old colleagues, but also my old clients that have supported us in the past, to be involved in Breakbulk as well. So we really love to have that.
And just some quick fire questions to finish with. Somebody's just arrived in Houston for Breakbulk. What's your top tip for somewhere to eat or drink?
I think after the Breakbulk, you've got to go to Piano Bar, which I think is a fantastic night after Breakbulk. So I'd always recommend that.
And complete the sentence, if I wasn't in logistics, I'd be
in construction.
Eddie, thanks very much for your time.
Appreciate it, Luke. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Leslie Meredith with the Breakbulk team, and welcome to Voices of Breakbulk Americas, produced by the Project Cargo Professionals podcast to help us celebrate the 35th anniversary of Breakbulk Americas. Enjoy the show and register now so that you can join us in Houston this fall, September 30th through October 2nd for Breakbulk Americas.